I think that the challenge is not just a European one, though every country has a different cultural context. I think largely one of the reasons we find in Europe a smaller group of people becoming entrepreneurs is because there are two cultural issues that span most of Europe. One is that there is a greater downside to failure. Therefore, if you do poorly and if your business fails, the stigma that attaches to you is far more deleterious to your future than it would be in the United States, where the failure of a business is not necessarily considered the failure of the person. Secondarily, we do not teach people to aspire to entrepreneurship as often as we teach them to become professionals. It's more respected to become a professor, a lawyer, an accountant, largely in the educational system than it is to go out and set up something by yourself. The notion that I started was the whole purpose of School for Startups deals with two issues. First, a lot of people believe you cannot teach entrepreneurship. I do find that largely a laughable notion, because if you said to somebody, I'm going to ask you to be the first violinist in a major orchestra, here's a violin, good luck. Nobody would expect them to be a great violinist. Everyone learns how to play the violin. Now, at the outcome of taking 10 people learning violin for 10 years, some of them will be sawing away and your ears will hurt, and some of them will become fantastic violinists. Therefore, you can teach someone to play a violin, and in fact, you have to teach someone to play a violin. But the mere teaching doesn't mean they'll be a great violinist. It is precisely the same in entrepreneurship. I can't teach someone to be a great entrepreneur, but if somebody has that potential, they can be taught a huge amount. Well, you just have to kind of unwind the question of what causes economic growth. There was a longitudinal study done in the US last year by the National Bureau of Economic Research, which looked across small businesses over the last 20 years. And what they found is every single net new job and all increases in productivity and economic wealth, at least in the United States, came from not small businesses, but young businesses, which are inherently small businesses. A young business is by definition an entrepreneur's business. Therefore, all the new wealth in the Western economy grew from one very small fraction of the economy. Well, I would assert then that if in fact entrepreneurs are the basis for almost all the net new wealth in our society, and we're in the middle of the greatest recession, if not in this century ever, then we might consider paying more attention to the predicate conditions to entrepreneurship. Sure, so our goal, since we see there being two separate issues, actually three I suppose, but we deal with two of them. One being the notion that a lot of people are not yet persuaded they can be an entrepreneur, and the latter being that if they have decided, they find it very difficult to get started. We have broad programs, i.e. programs that we try to touch a lot of people that are very shallow, and then we have deep programs where we work for a very long time with a few people. So in the context of a broad program, I've taught, since we started 3 years ago, a little over 12,000 people how to start a business. And these are programs where we have short boot camps, we bring people in and we spend a day with them trying to demystify and put them in a position to understand what you need to do to start a business. At the same time, we run a completely different type of program. So we have a program which is a year-long program where you have to apply, qualify, be accepted on the program, and we will then spend the whole year with you getting your business started. Where am I located? Well, right now I feel like I'm located everywhere. School for Startups has programs in England, Wales, and currently existing programs. And we are launching we have a program in Romania right now, and we're launching a much larger program in Eastern Europe next year, where for the first time anybody will be eligible. You don't have to be Romanian, and it'll be held in Bucharest, Timișoara, and Cluj. We have applications open for spots for 450 entrepreneurs. And so long as you get accepted onto the program, we'll help you for the whole year. Well, I used to be like a proper entrepreneur. I stopped. I started my first company in Hollywood doing systems integration, putting together computer systems for film and TV. And I ran that for 5 years and sold it. Started my second company. It was a software company doing 3D graphics and animation for film and TV. Grew it for 5 years and sold it. But I sold that one to a very large US public company. And unfortunately, I took shares in the large company. The shares became worthless. I was wiped out. So I did a reverse takeover of a US public company and installed myself as the CEO. And then I ran that for 5 years and then sold it. Got tired of doing that, moved to the UK, started a angel group in Cambridge. Then I started a research house. Then I appeared on UK TV in Dragon's Den, which changed everything. Then I started working with government. Then we had a bit of a financial crisis, and then I started School for Startups, and I've jumped over about 1,000 things, but that's the quick version. The challenge, interestingly enough, was less the audience and more the BBC. The BBC is the single most uncommercial place ever created by mankind. It is a business-free environment. They don't know what a business is if it hits them on the head. I think the best example was literally the first week of filming. We had the 5 dragons, we didn't know each other. The show had not yet aired, nobody really had no idea what was going on. And it was young researchers in the BBC who had to pick the companies to present to us. So using their vast business acumen, they chose the companies they thought we would be interested in. And of course they picked total crap. And so every day we'd show up on this set, and for 10 hours a day we'd film. By Friday evening, nobody had invested anything. And the producers were having a fit because they thought the whole show was going to fall apart because they realized that there had been a slight flaw in their plans. Yeah, so the challenge inevitably was not that. The challenge was actually the BBC having to come to understand how business worked so that we could make a show. I suppose right now I am primarily motivated by growing School for Startups. I think that there is, somebody once said in your 20s you want to get sex, in 30s you want money, in 40s you want power, and if by the time you turn 50 you'd like to have an impact. I apparently am typical.
Thanks a lot.
You're quite welcome.